every Targaryen I get my hands on.
Everyone who isn't us is an enemy.
Sir Ilyn, bring me his head.
We are Ironborn. We take what is ours. The Lannisters send their regards.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 prediction video. Today I want to talk about Viserion and some of the ways the undead dragon could possibly be killed. I really don't want to get into the debate about whether Viserion is a white dragon or White Walker dragon because I already gave my opinion on that in my first video about how to kill Viserion. About 10 minutes after this episode ended, I released a video where I talked about several different ways I thought Viserion could be stopped. But the main reason why I want to talk about this again is because I am wondering if Jaime Lannister will try to kill this dragon. We have seen Jaime try to kill a dragon before, so perhaps he tries to do it again. Now that the Night King has his own dragon, this makes him even more dangerous than he already was, so they're going to need to stop Viserion as soon as possible, otherwise things could get very ugly in the north. We already saw Viserion knock down a giant portion of the magical wall, so I can only assume what he could do to people running around on the ground. Since Viserion is powered by the Night King's magic, you may be able to kill him by killing the Night King first, just like Beric Dondarrion suggested, but we don't know how true that actually is. We did see it work with one of the White Walkers and the Wights that he raised, but that doesn't mean it will work with the Night King. Jon Snow did not seem so sure about that, because when Beric Dondarrion said this, Jon Snow said you don't understand, which implies it's not going to be that easy.
There's another. Killed him. He turned them all.
You don't understand.
So that probably means the Night King will have an ace up his sleeve, or that might even be some foreshadowing for the big twist at the end of the series. Either way, Viserion needs to die for good. He is too big of a threat. Now, before I talk about Jaime Lannister, let me go over some of the possible ways Viserion could die. There are only a handful of weapons that we know of that can stop the Night King's soldiers. But the million-dollar question is, which of these weapons will work against Viserion now that he's an undead dragon? The first method I want to discuss is fire, because it obviously plays a big part in this entire series, considering it was adapted from a story that has the overall title, A Song of Ice and Fire. We know for a fact that fire can kill wights. This was the very first weakness that Jon discovered back in Season 1 when he caught the wight on fire that was attacking Lord Commander Mormont. The only problem is, we don't know if fire can kill the White Walkers or the Night King. Based on what we've seen so far, it doesn't seem to have much of an effect on the Night King or his top lieutenants. We saw the White Walker come right through the fire at Hardhome. Not only did he walk through it, but the fire actually got smaller, most likely because of how cold the White Walker was. We saw this happen again right outside of the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. When the Night King led the assault on the cave, the Children of the Forest tried to prevent them from entering by using fire as a last resort. This prevented the Wights from coming through the front of the cave, but it did not stop the Night King or the White Walkers. And once again, the fire got smaller as they walked through it, which basically indicates that it doesn't hurt them. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking, what about Dragonfire? Dragonfire has magical properties, so it should work against the White Walkers and the Night King. But this hasn't been confirmed either. When Daenerys went beyond the wall with her dragons, we only saw her burning wights. The White Walkers and the Night King never came under direct dragonfire, so I don't know if it will kill them or not. The Night King also did something very interesting right before he killed Viserion. As the Night King prepared to launch his ice spear, he walked right through the dragonfire that was on the ground. And once again, the fire got smaller as he did this. The Night King and the White Walkers never showed an ounce of fear either. Daenerys had 3 dragons raining down fire on his army, and the Night King never flinched. So, dragons might not be enough to stop him, and this leads me to Viserion. Can Viserion be killed by fire? Well, if fire doesn't harm the Night King or the White Walkers, then it probably won't harm Viserion either. Plus, you have to consider the fact that Viserion is a dragon, and dragons don't typically die by fire. Dragons are actually fire-made flesh, but would this still apply to Viserion now that he's undead? This is a tough question to answer because we don't know enough about his powers or weaknesses yet. If Viserion can be killed by fire, there is only one way I can see this happening, but I will save my answer for the end of the video. Now let's move on to the next weapon, which is Dragonglass. This weapon is a little more effective because we have seen it kill Wights and White Walkers. Dragonglass does not actually kill Wights in the books, but it does in the show. Since Wights and White Walkers can be killed by Dragonglass, then there is a good chance that Viserion can be killed by Dragonglass as well. But I do need to point out there are two things that could pose as a problem. For one, Dragonglass is very brittle, hence the word glass in the name. Dragonglass can break just like glass, and dragons have very tough skin. I'm not even sure if you would call it skin because it's more like scales that are thicker than leather. We have seen arrows bounce right off a Drogon during the Field of Fire, so if they try and shoot Dragonglass at Viserion, it might just explode into pieces on impact. Now obviously there is no way to know unless we see them try it, but it would probably break before it would pierce the dragon's scales. Using an arrow that has a tip made out of Dragonglass would be nowhere near as strong as a tip made out of some kind of steel or iron. The second problem is that most of the magical properties in Dragonglass come from dragon fire. Dragonglass is actually called Frozen Dragon Fire. Since it is made by a dragon's flame, it might not have an effect on Viserion since he is of course a dragon, albeit an undead dragon. So, even though Dragonglass can kill a Wight or White Walker, it might not be able to kill a dragon. Now the good thing is they do have a lot of Dragonglass. Jon was able to mine the caves on Dragonstone, so I am assuming he was able to get several tons. This is good because now he can arm pretty much everyone with a weapon that can take down almost anything in front of them. Not only that, but this will allow them to take multiple shots at Viserion without having to worry about running out of projectiles. The more shots you are able to take, the better chance you have of taking him down. Now, even though Dragonglass is very brittle, there is still one way you could hurt Viserion and possibly even kill him. One way to kill a dragon is to shoot something or plunge something into its eye. When Viserion has his eyes open, they are extremely vulnerable because he has nothing to protect them, but it's obviously very hard to have that kind of accuracy. Dragons are already very fast, but after Viserion was raised by the Night King, he seemed to be even faster than before, so I don't know how they're going to be able to get something into its eye, unless they are very lucky. And this is where Jaime Lannister could come into play. As we all know, Jaime has tried to kill a dragon before, and he came pretty damn close to being successful. If for some reason the Night King would happen to land Viserion on the ground, Jaime might try to seize that as an opportunity by going after a dragon again. Now I'm not saying this will happen, this is not my actual prediction, but it's just another possibility I want to discuss. Because if the arrows or ballistas aren't working, they might find themselves in a desperate situation. Jaime does have a Valyrian steel sword, and this can kill Wights and White Walkers in the show, so it should work against Viserion too. Or Jaime could also use a Dragonglass spear. We know the Unsullied carry spears, and they will be turning them into Dragonglass spears now that they're going to be facing an army of the dead. If the Night King landed Viserion for whatever reason, someone might have to take a charge at him and pray they can jam one of the weapons into his eye, otherwise they may be screwed. I have always felt that Jaime would probably sacrifice himself while trying to save one of the Starks. Jaime's story has been linked to Bran Stark ever since the beginning of the story. Also, when Lady Catelyn freed Jaime Lannister, he had to promise that in return he would see that her daughters were given safety, which led Jaime to giving Brienne Oathkeeper and sending her out to find them. Now that there are only 6 episodes left, Jaime's redemption arc will be coming to an end very soon. And with his final act, he might save at least one of the Stark's lives. In order to do this, he may have to pay the ultimate price by giving his life to save one of theirs. Jaime's empty pages in the White Book have haunted him for a very long time. He does not want to only be remembered as the Kingslayer. I think his final deed will be remembered, but it will cost him his life. Imagine if Jaime put his life on the line by attempting to kill Viserion before the dragon can completely burn down Winterfell and anyone that is inside the castle. Now, if Jaime doesn't happen to do it, then perhaps Bronn could kill Viserion. I haven't seen any ballistas in the north, but if they were able to supply them, then Bronn should definitely be one of the people who man it. We just have to hope Jaime finds Bronn before he gets too far north, although I do believe Jaime will find him and bring him. Since Bran and Jaime both tried to kill a dragon in Season 7, I figured I should at least mention them because they could always try to do it again. But there are a few other ways Viserion could be killed. Like I said at the beginning of the video, when Viserion was killed, I released a video about 10 minutes after that episode ended, and one of the other ways I said he could die is by weirwood arrows. Some of you might not know this, but there was a character named Brandon Snow, and he was the bastard brother of Torrhen Stark. Even if you haven't read the books, you might remember the name Torrhen Stark because he was referenced during Season 7. Torrhen Stark was known as the King Who Knelt. He bent the knee to Aegon Targaryen when he arrived with his 3 dragons. Now this is interesting because Daenerys arrived with her 3 dragons, and Jon Snow was the king in the north who bent the knee, just like Torrhen Stark did. And just like Torrhen Stark, Jon also has a brother named Brandon. Well, before Torrhen Stark bent the knee, Brandon told him he would sneak into Aegon's camp and kill his 3 dragons, but Torrhen Stark ended up bending the knee the very next day. So we never found out how Brandon was actually going to pull this off. But in A Dance with Dragons, Bran Stark has a vision, and he sees a man making arrows out of a weirwood tree. And can you guess how many arrows he was making? He was making 3 arrows, because Aegon had 3 dragons. So, arrows made out of a magical weirwood tree could probably kill a dragon since George R.R. Martin put these little details in his story. History tends to repeat itself in this story a lot, but it usually plays out a little bit differently when it does. If Jon Snow is the modern day Torrhen Stark, who was the king in the north that bent the knee, then maybe Bran Stark is the modern day Brandon Snow, who will try to kill a dragon with weirwood arrows. No one knows a weirwood tree better than Bran Stark, so it would make sense if he would be the one to suggest something like this. But it would also make sense if Bran took the shot himself. We have seen Bran practicing with bow and arrow ever since the very first episode of the series. Bran was in the yard with Jon and Robb, but he kept missing his shot and they all laughed at him. Then in Season 3, Bran even had a dream where he was shooting his bow, and Jon and Robb were next to him again. Bran tried to shoot the 3-eyed raven and he missed, which caused Jon and Robb to laugh at him again. That would be pretty damn cool if Bran was actually the one to bring down a dragon with his bow. However, I might have to stick with my original prediction. I still tend to believe that Drogon will actually kill Viserion. I mostly base this on the symbolism in the dragons' names. Drogon was named after Khal Drogo, and Viserion was named after Dany's brother, Viserys. Khal Drogo killed Viserys when he poured molten gold onto his head. So I think Drogon will kill Viserion, and he may even do it in a similar fashion, by unleashing fire on his head. That's if Dragonfire can even kill an undead dragon, and I'm not so sure if it can. But Drogon could severely injure Viserion, to the point that it slows him down enough for someone to get off a shot, or force him to land. Then someone can take a charge at him. Either way, I think Drogon will play a big part in bringing down Viserion, but that's just my opinion. Obviously, this could play out many different ways, and we don't know enough about this dragon's weaknesses to say which method is right and which methods are wrong. But until we find out, we can have some fun by speculating on these things. Let me know what you think about this topic. How do you believe Viserion will die? Put your thoughts down below in the comments section. I want to thank you all for watching the video, I really appreciate that, and I also want to thank all of my Patreon supporters. Have a great day everyone. I will see you again very soon. Bye.